you doing? How you feeling? What's going on, Lex?
I'm doing good, Carly. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Just grateful for another day.
I feel you on that. We about to get a little deep today, I feel, though.
We are, which is why she didn't know I was going to do this, but we're going to start with a little bit of breathing.
Oh, my gosh. We're supposed to be in this together.
We are.
You didn't tell me we were doing this.
It's a surprise. Okay, so.
And the listeners, I guess you're supposed to do this too?
Yeah, definitely. This is just to help, center and calm you a little bit.
This is so Carly.
Take a big inhale through your nose. Exhale out of your mouth.
All in the mic.
All in the mic.
So like, why am I listening to you breathe?
Breaths like that.
Okay.
I can do it with this big inhale through your nose. Exhale out of your mouth. One last big clearing breath. Big inhale through your nose. Hold it at the top. Sip in just a little bit more air. And then nope, we're done.
Our breakfast so hot that our poster fell off the wall.
Stop. This is how you gotta watch the video.
Yeah, so alright, every week we give you a random ass reason to watch us on YouTube. And this week you can see us doing breathing exercises and how my poster fell off the wall. Those are
It's great research tool.
No, we got the right one. Open up the drawer.
Okay.
See, last time we had a post-it that said that said vouch, and now we're gonna have to write art.
That thing was like.
But this was cool. So while we were doing breathing exercises, this thing fell down. It says, live your life with intention. Live the life you've always dreamed of. The life you have always imagined living. However, it was put up very jankily because I did not actually want my wall paint to peel off after we had that stuck up. So I did it halfway. And life lesson, don't do things halfway. So,
yeah.
Ta-da! Presenting our new post-it note.
If you can't see it, it's orange and it says art with the little heart at the bottom.
Yeah, Carly going Carly.
Okay, we're gonna do one more clearing breath because we almost died on the last
one. Right, it took you out.
Almost. All
right, back to the breathing.
Get centered, take a big inhale through your nose. Hold it at the top. Sip in just a little bit more air. And then exhale slowly all the way out. Exhaling all the air in your body.
That looks so crazy. I make a lot of facial expressions, so it's hard for me to focus.
Yeah, no, me too, but I think that's part of it. Actually, people always talk about it. That was
calming when I stopped trying to avoid it. Doing what we just did, and also for me, things like going to the gym, I'll joke a lot and I'll be laughing like, like, because I don't actually want to focus on doing what it is. But then a lot of times when you just shut up and do it, and you're like, oh, that was nice.
Yeah,
so
we're typically resistant to things that we need.
Or that's my little mechanism. Or like when if I'm not good at it, or if I'm like, I don't want to do it. Just making jokes and laughing through it, but
yeah. But thank you for reading with us. Those are called clearing breaths. Yeah. And
now we won't talk too fast, maybe.
I think we needed that before today's topic.
Ooh.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Let's tell them what's up.
Today we're going to talk about your self-love journey, which sounds to me, and with my background of not having all the study in mental health and holistic wellness, all of that, to me, anytime even still, sometimes when I see self-love, I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds like something in the clouds, Care Berry, whatever, not really interested, but when we really break down what that means and what it's about, it's something that's been very needed in my own life and very instrumental in helping me to enjoy life more, I think. So in this episode, we'll talk a lot about our personal journeys and, give you some ideas about how you need to maximize or increase your own self-love, and then what does that journey look like, or what are some things you can do to increase that. So
yeah, and some of the things that we've learned along the way on this lifelong journey to self-love and learning about
and it really is lifelong too. I mean, that's part of it, right? That you never just all the way get it and reach nirvana, or maybe, I don't know, some people might have, but
that's the goal, right?
Yeah, but, maybe.
Yeah,
but it's always something,
Yeah, holla to share your journey, share tips, thoughts, questions, comments. Let us know you're listening. Screenshot the podcast and tag us on social media.
Hey, yo, don't go on YouTube and pause it when that thing fell down and screenshot where Carly was like,
Well, Lex was like,
I was like, oh shit.
we can actually.
They be like, damn, y'all fucking up.
Fucking up.
But as long as you watching and listening,
that's all true. And leaving 5-star reviews. But
thank you.
At Lex_Topia at CC Fierce on Instagram. So, what is self-love? In order to talk about a self-love journey, it's important to understand at least our definitions or our meanings for self-love. What is self-love to you?
Self-love to me means knowing yourself, understanding yourself, appreciating yourself, and living in your actual purpose, feeling like you are on a path and that what you're doing is uniquely and specific to you, if that makes sense, and feeling good, and a general feeling of feeling good and feeling okay with yourself. The obvious loving yourself, but just knowing, even of course life is up and down, but knowing you got it, knowing everything's gonna be okay, not stressing out over things. That's a lot. That's kind of broad, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's
being able to always come back and center into, I feel like if you know yourself and love yourself, you're not living in some cutout of what you think you're supposed to be doing, and things kind of tend to work out better, you feel better, and then your life tends to be on a better path.
I think the beautiful part is there's no right or wrong answers.
Yes, there is. There's wrong answers.
Oh, well, I mean, okay, that's probably true. Just like people say there are no stupid questions.
There's definitely stupid questions.
There are, in fact, stupid questions.
But what does self-love really mean, since you actually do this for your life?
I think you hit on the majority of the points. It's knowing yourself, understanding yourself, knowing what makes you tick on a very intimate and extensive level. Like, deep down, who are you? Like, what is in your heart? What are your passions? I think you have to know what your passions are, and those lead you to your purpose. A lot of times people get stuck with finding this grand, huge, big purpose for their life, and they want this one answer, but I think there's a lot of little purposes in our lives. And so it's knowing yourself on every single level, and taking care of yourself so that you're able to do the things that you believe your purpose to do.
So my next question to you then would be, why is it a journey? Why don't we love ourselves to the fullest off top? You know, what is it about life to where there's always at least some bit that we can do that better, or we're off track to where we get to a space where now I feel like, man, I need to recenter. Who am I? Like, why don't we just come out the gate like, I love myself, I have full confidence?
I think we actually do come out of the gate like that when we're born.
Oh, you right.
I think that
life beats
babies,
down.
if you look at babies and little kids in safe environments where they're loved, right? Like, they have the secret to life. Like, they know everything. They're geniuses until we F them up, until society tells them that they're not enough, that they should be X, Y, Z, until one of their aunties is like, oh, you're really pretty, but you have a really big head. Or like, or you're dumb. Like, until a teacher tells a child that they're dumb, or
why doesn't your hair look like this?
Exactly. Well, you have good hair, but telling your sibling that they might not. Like, I think that the way society is set up is to break us down. And to cause us to not love ourselves, because if we were all happy, healthy, taking care of ourselves, living in our purpose, what happens to the pharmaceutical industry? What happens to, and not saying
that's
that
what they say, when you're watching commercials or most things, they're really just selling you the idea that you're not there yet and that you need this thing.
Yeah, even in fitness. And like creating these crazy body ideals, like from The Incredibles. Like, look at like her. Like,
it's thick.
Exactly, thick. She been thick. He was talking about she built like an Instagram model. No, Instagram models are built like her. This incredible bent thick. But Elastigirl. But making people believe that there's a lack in them, and then they start to own that, and they start to become that lack, and that fuels so many industries: beauty, health, medicine, all of those things. So I think that we actually do start out of the gate,
I
like
think I do agree
these
with
immaculate creatures.
you. And that's why kids are always so straightforward, so innocent. When you ask them, what do you want to be? It's like, I want to be a garbage man on the moon. And it's like, okay, but you're right, over time. And there's disappointments, and it perpetuates because as humans, you know, we may not get all the way to that level, but then you become a parent or disappointments happen in life to where now that kid has teachers that don't see things the same way, or they don't have all the self-love, or people around you. And so maybe you do have to get back to a point where you realize you're a little off track, and now you have to go on that journey for yourself to get back to that.
To tell a story about exactly what you just said, I think that hurt people.
Yeah,
and we're all
100%.
hurt in some way. We've all hurt somebody, right? Because we're all for the most part, doing the best that we can with what we have. But I did this project working with a school system out here, and we were asking kids, like, what do you want to be whenever you grow up? Like, what are your hopes and dreams? And the little girl said, like, oh, like, I want to own, she said, okay, I want to be a professional singer so that I can make enough money to build a bakery so that I can help feed homeless people and support my family.
Cool.
Which is amazing. That's fire. And I was so inspired by her. To this day, I still have that picture on my phone because she like wrote it all down on this little sheet. But then I went to another school, and a little boy said, I want to be an engineer and a lawyer and a teacher. And his teacher said, oh, you can't do all that. You have to choose.
And that teacher probably didn't even think about what that really meant, what she was saying.
Oh, I almost flipped that table. Good God, I was pissed. But then I think about it, and I'm like, I'm sure I've done something like that unintentionally. And if you think about that, how often our own limitations or our own perceived limitations we use to limit other people.
All the time.
And so I think that's why it's a journey, because you're always interacting with people on different levels. You're always growing. You're always changing.
And you start to care about what other people are saying less. Or I don't know which comes first, you being on your journey, or you recognizing that other people don't matter as much as far as what they think about you in your life. But that's one of the things that I've noticed too, is the more you grow in self-love, the less that outside stuff matters. Like, the audience doesn't even matter, because you do what's right for you, or you do what you feel makes you feel whole.
Exactly. And that really, to our point earlier, it goes to show that you have to know yourself to be able to stand confidently on that foundation of you, regardless of what people say about you, because people will always. And
to recognize that that's that own person's limitations or their own hurt or whatever that's projected, so you don't even take things as personally.
Exactly. And also thinking about it on the flip side, whenever you make comments to people, realizing that could very well be your own limitation. And not having to own that. Like, I don't have to own anything that you say about me. I don't have to own or take to heart anything that anybody says about me, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
So, if people come out of the womb, oh man, everything's awesome, self-love, until the world happens, what do you think is a turning point to where people actually think about the fact that, man, something needs to change, or what has to be wrong? What does it look like when your self-love is low?
I think that you don't know until you know, and that sounds very
or maybe more so, you don't know that it could be better until you start having experiences, or until you see somebody and the way they're living or something.
Until you see it. I think you don't know until you start seeing something different than what you're currently experiencing or how your life is, and realizing that there's more. For example, seeing successful people of color, Black people, doing amazing things that weren't always forefront in the media. You're not able to see it. I know an organization that works with STEM in young women, particularly in underrepresented communities. And one of the exercises they do with the kids in the very beginning is they say, hey, draw a scientist. Right? Yeah. And overwhelmingly, all of the kids will draw an old, crazy-looking white man. Because that's all they've ever seen in cartoons, on TV, like anything. That's all they've ever seen.
Morty,
exactly. Even like Dexter's Laboratory, it's a little white man, but like that's all they've seen.
With a Russian accent, they're always like Eastern European too.
Exactly. That's what's a laboratory.
Get out of my laboratory.
DD like prancing. But I used to love that show. To that point, at the end of the program, when they ask them to draw a scientist again, they draw themselves or people who look like them. And so I think it takes this exposure to knowing that life can look different, that life can be better. And that's so important for everybody, but I think especially for in underrepresented communities because we're not used to seeing it. We're seeing anything differently.
Now, as a, not really devil's advocate, but as another point to that, what you see, I think in our age of social media and seeing everybody's highlight reels or seeing what people say about themselves, which may or may not be true, I think it's also very important to see, yes, that things can be done, but not to get to a point of comparison or not to get to a point where I want to be this person. And to still be careful about that, because I think now more than ever we see people looking happy, and that's my air quotes for the episode.
Can I give you some too?
Yeah.
What is that double
we
air
see
quotes?
people being happy, and it's like, man, now I see stuff and I'm like, I hope this person really is happy. Or I think about myself when I'm going to put something up and it's like, why am I putting this up? And that can be something maybe we talk about later more with social media, because I lost interest in posting a lot because I just, all of a sudden I stopped caring about feeling like I need to put stuff up, even though obviously there's business reasons and other reasons that, are important to continue to post and be active on social media. But those people need to not matter too much. I mean, but once you get a taste, I think, of knowing, like the examples you said, especially with children, anytime I work with children, it's so important, their reactions and how, sometimes it is flipping that switch to, I can do this, or it is good to have seen you or talked to you. But once you see that, now it's like, okay, let's take things with a grain of salt with what we see.
Yeah, and what I'll say to that is, are you feeling how you look? Like, is it authentically you?
That's what happens sometimes with posting. It's like you go, or have you seen people where they're taking a selfie and you're like posing, getting ready, smiling, laughing, whatever, do it, and you put your phone down. It's like, you're not even really laughing right now.
I've seen people reply LOL and you're not laughing.
I'm not ever laughing, bro. I promise.
Straight face, just LMFAO.
It's very few things that make me laugh out loud. And when I do for real laugh out loud, that's when I'll be like capital LO. Like you're gonna know I'm for real laughing, because every once in a while I am. But for the most part, and that's another thing, like, man, I gotta stop even using LOL because it's just a pad, kind of like a padding.
Ooh, I think a good question, like a good litmus test for me is, does your life feel as good as it looks to other people? And not that other people matter, but I mean, in the image that you're projecting to other people, does it actually feel that good?
I think that's a good symptom, which is what we're about to go into, is what are the symptoms of, where there's still room for improvement in a space. And that's a really good one, because A, why are you trying to portray a certain thing? And B, that signifies that I really should feel better about, because maybe what you are showing is cool, but if you don't really feel excited about it, or you don't really feel that awesome, then something's still not quite connecting.
Yeah, and even the word should, I hate in general, because it's like, first of all, who told you what you should feel like, look like, be like, think like? And that is those societally imposed or even self-imposed expectations for what all of those things, what you should look like, feel like, be like. And so just getting into why that is important and starting to question those things.
I think self-awareness is the key with a lot of things, and I clearly at some point in every episode we talk about knowing yourself and self-awareness. But in this one specifically too, self-love is being aware of your mental state, aware of how you really feel about what's going on with your life. And I think choosing to improve that, and that's something you have to do with yourself, or you have to do for yourself. But I think it's easier to tell when you're off, and the hard part is getting to a better space, maybe.
Yeah, and that's really all that it is. And being kind to yourself along the journey, because you're not always going to be as happy as your Instagram looks. You're not always going to feel good. You're not going to have great days every day. And that's not being okay is okay.
Yeah, it's okay to not be okay. That doesn't mean you have to be that person with every up you're talking about, with every down you talk about it. But it should be a normalized thing to where, hey, sometimes it's an off day, or sometimes I'm not feeling it today. So that's normal. So I think that's actually important. I'm glad you said that we express that, self-love is not just having a bad day, or that means like, oh man, I don't love myself today. That's not it at all, because that's just part of life. But I think there's some things that when you just really feel down, or when things don't feel aligned, when you feel like something's missing, is when you can focus on more self-care and more of the tips and stuff that we've done in our own lives, I guess, to try to increase our self-love. So what are some of those, Carly? Or what does it look like? Let me rephrase. What does it look like when your self-love has been low, or symptoms that are like, man, I really need to focus more on myself?
Man, I think low self-love, like not taking care of myself, which we'll have a whole episode on self-care, maybe a couple, because that's one of my favorite things in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But ways that it manifests, there's so many ways that it manifests. I think, speaking of self-care, one of the ways it manifests for me is I'm not taking care of myself. Mentally, physically, emotionally. Like whenever I haven't worked out or done yoga, that's how I know something is wrong. Because I love moving my body, stretching, feeling good in my physical body, which is like the foundation for everything else that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I know that something is off and that something needs to be readjusted whenever I'm not physically taking care of myself.
Okay. Mine are all like low and stuff, but mine, so you said a symptom for you is if you don't feel like going to the gym or working out. For me, part of when I know I'm like in a like down space, or I need to refocus and get my purpose realigned, is when I just don't even feel like waking up really in the mornings, which have been a few times in the last month for me. So it's, for me, that's a big thing. And that's when I know something's off, when I have periods of time where it's just like, I'm not excited to get up necessarily.
Yeah.
And my life can be exciting and I can have a lot of things going on. And for me, for example, once I do have some coffee or whatever, then I'll jolt up or get it together. But it's really hard for me. And it's not just liking sleep, which I do and I've mentioned many times. I just don't want to get up. And I'll be like, oh, snooze. And then once I start my day and when I go to bed, I'm like, all right, tomorrow I'm waking up. Next morning, nah, it's not going to be today. Like, I don't feel like moving around.
Yeah, I think those are actually more closely tied than they appear in the beginning. First, I definitely have had days where I don't want to get out of bed, right? Where I'm just like, oh my God, like today is just not the thing. But I read a lot and watch a lot of videos. And one of the YouTube videos I was watching, he was like, I think it was Stephen Furtick. He's a pastor, but he was just like, if you left your day up to how you feel whenever you wake up, it's 50-50. Either you gonna be feeling it or you not, and that's gonna be your day. But it's making a conscious choice to do those things in spite of how you feel.
Yep.
That is self-love. Looking at, to me, and that's what I tell myself, not saying it's easy, like by no means is it easy whenever you don't feel like moving, but telling myself, like, is me staying in bed all day, even though some of those days are great, but today is me staying in bed all day really helping me work towards my goals? Am I taking care of myself by doing this? Because a lot of times I for myself have used, today's just a self-care day, I just really need to lay here. But like, is it? Time. Exactly, but is it? But then also on the physiological standpoint for this, if you don't move, your body will stay in whatever state it's in. So if you're feeling down and you're feeling upset and sad and you just lay there in a ball all day, it will only perpetuate and continue to build. But if you get up and you shake your ass a little bit, dance around your house, move around, go work out, go do yoga, breathe, whatever your movement is, stretch, foam roll, then you kind of get your juices flowing and you feel good.
I got that same realization recently from Mel Robbins, who I like a lot. She's a woman who does a lot of motivational stuff. What she says is motivation is garbage. And that, again, the same thing. You never feel like doing any of the stuff you're supposed to do. Like, nobody ever feels like doing any of that stuff. So you can't sit around waiting like, oh, when I feel like it, I'll do it. It really is about action. And so when you're feeling in a space where you just don't want to take action, to me, that means I need to reassess like my why. I need to reassess kind of what path I'm on, what's the purpose of what's going on, what's important to me, and re-energize myself as far as my knowing myself and who I am and what's important, because you do have to make that decision to move, but it's not based on how you feel. It's more so based on you keeping those end goals in mind or what's important to you in mind, I think.
Yeah, and that's so important. Mel Robbins, any relation to Tony Robbins, perhaps?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But Tony, Uncle Tony, as I call him, he's not my uncle.
He's funny.
I went to UPW, unleash the power within. I was like, wait, I know the little
Mhm.
shortened thing that's unleash the power within. And part of his biggest thing is the same thing. Like, you're not going to feel like it. But here's what he says. He's like, I do not negotiate with myself. I do not negotiate with
It
myself.
takes a lot of strength to do that.
Oh my God. That takes,
Because I still, every morning, I'd be like,
I be talking myself out of it.
it.
I be talking myself out of it, but a good way to kind of shake up those feelings is I challenge you, the next time you feel like this, you're going to be cursing me out in your head, which is fine. I'll take that all day. But get up and dance or move around or jump or breathe or do a combination and find out what works for you. Because I promise, like, actual physical movement starts to move that energy around in your body.
I had a close family friend of ours, somebody who went to college with my dad, when he'd visit us back home. And I was a little kid then, but he'd say, in the morning, jump out of bed and say, yes! And I was like, we were laughing at him because we were like, you're okay. But my part to go along with what you just said is, just to even do that get up part, is give yourself a countdown. Like, 5, 4, 3, 2, and you have to get up. Like, you have to. And then once you get up, do whatever you need to do. But for me, it's almost like it makes me have to do it, because I might hit snooze or I might look at my phone, put down. But as soon as I tell myself, Lex, you need to get up, I'll start doing that little countdown, and it really works. It's like, man, let me not disappoint myself,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, that's a big symptom of where I know I need work in that space, or it shows me a space that I need to work on as far as my own self-love.
Which, let's celebrate, because it's beautiful to know whenever you need to work on stuff. Because
Mm-hmm.
how else do you know you need to work on things unless they come up?
Mm-hmm.
Which sounds so crazy. But then you know which specific areas you have growth in. You said something about disappointing yourself. And I know one way for me that self-love and self-care, like, we're pretty much the antithesis of that, manifests for me in my life is being way too hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Beating myself up for every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, if I did stay in bed, then the next day being like, you had to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes a cycle. So I don't even want to get out of bed now at this
It
point.
really does perpetuate.
Oh, my God.
Procrastination perpetuates because it's what's the word? It's an escape, and it kind of just feels good. And so now, oh man, now I'm feeling bad, or I'm feeling hard on myself, so I need to escape again from that. And so you continue to do more and more of that thing until you make that decision to get out of it, basically. One thing for me, and actually, I was on the phone this morning, a friend of mine hit me up, and in my mind, something told me, let me actually call her. And I'm not a big phone person. I don't like talking on the phone, mostly because, and this might not even sound good, but mostly because I like being able to do multiple things. So if I text, I can put my phone down and not answer for a while until I feel like coming back. But I was like, let me give her some attention, or my full attention, excuse me. And I called her, and she's asking, like, oh, how you been? And you haven't heard from me in a while. And I decided to be honest with my answer, and that I was like, yeah, you know how life is good, I feel fine, but at the same time, lately I've been in a patch of, I just don't feel like talking to people. I don't want to be around people. I can turn into a hermit when I'm like, that's kind of when I know, like, my self-love's kind of down, because I want to sleep a lot, and I just want to be by myself. I don't want to be around people, because then I have to, like, talk and be open, and sometimes I just want to, like, fester in it, which isn't good, because then when I do get out, I'm like, man, I'm really glad I got out and did what I need to do, and just smile and laugh with people instead of making yourself kind of stuck in a spot. And she's like, yeah, I get it. But at the same time, I can go through that, and all of these things I can go through, but I also know that I'm fine, or whatever's going on, like with work or with money or with whatever, family, that is fine. At the same time, I just still want to, just be to myself. I don't always feel like being very active with people all the time and talking all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if anybody does. Like, I love people most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time I do. And somebody asked me that yesterday, like, are you an extrovert or an introvert? But they know me, so they know I'm an extrovert. But I have to have alone time to recharge. Otherwise, I'm not good. But there's a difference for me in having alone time and taking the space that I need to fill myself up, and then being a hermit and hiding from people. Because people who know me and who really care about me, they can tell when I'm, like, hiding and not really taking care of myself or doing what I need to do. I don't know what it is. Carly ESP, I guess. But there's a difference.
Well, I guess if they're used to a certain type of response from you, maybe. and where you're not giving it or you're not putting much energy behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I can answer people's texts quick and call them whatever, and then the next week I just don't want to answer anything and I'll let it sit there. But and then you get all the jokes, the light skin jokes or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with that. Sometimes I just don't. My energy feels low because I'm focused on something else or more of myself. If that makes sense. So.
And it's turned inward, and I think that's okay. I feel like this whole dance with not being able to show up in the way that I normally do whenever, I'm not taking care of myself or loving on myself the way I need to be, manifest in, like, not being there for people sometimes, like how I normally am, not showing up. Like, I remember somebody asked me to, like, write a blog post about self-love, and I was so lit and excited, but then I had one of those weeks where I just, like, couldn't do it, and I was so hard on myself, and just didn't want to do it. And I'm like, then I beat myself up because I'm like, well, now you look flaky, and you said you were going to do this, and you didn't do it, and you're not a woman of your word. Like, I was going in on myself, and I'm like, baby girl, you had a hard week, it's okay. But also communicating that, right? Like, if somebody's depending on me, I need to be in a space where I can be like, you know what? I can't do it this week.
Yeah.
Like, but I wasn't able to articulate it at the time, and so now I'm
like, that's self-love too, being real about what you can take on and not trying to do too much, perhaps.
Yeah, because, man, doing too much, queen of that over here.
I'm like, nah, can't you help your fam?
Man, no, it's such a good, we're going to add this to the list, but saying no to things.
Yeah.
But I do want to kind of get into, we talked about the journey. When do you feel like you actually began your self-love journey? Like, did something happen? Or was there a bit, like, a pivotal moment in your life?
Have I talked about this in public? Maybe somewhere. Because I'm on another podcast too, and I'm trying to think of what all I've said before. But a lot of stuff, I haven't even said to some of my friends or my family or whatever, wouldn't know necessarily. But what I have said before is I was very, 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 very different through college especially. Maybe it was a couple of years after college to where something kind of flipped. And I have trouble with talking about how I changed because it feels like it just happened. But I don't like to say it because it's not just like, oh, it's that easy. It just happens. Or just decide. Or then again, maybe it is, where you just start taking action and you do that. But for me, I was very much, I'm an introvert already. It drains me talking to people. If I have a 2-hour meeting, like, I'm done for the rest of the day.
Nobody
which was
likes
me the other day.
Meetings.
Yeah, like, if I have to talk to people, I have to recharge by myself. So I'm already an introvert, but I used to be way, 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 way bad. And I used to be very bad with communication in that I was very blunt. I was that person who was kind of like an asshole because I was straightforward, but I thought that was what it's supposed to be. And I wasn't very open, so I was in one relationship in college, and I didn't like when, he was telling people our business, or, well, my friend said we should try this or do this, and I'm like, why are you talking about what we're doing? Like, I was that person too. And
Genuine ain't none of your friend's business?
Yeah, like, it ain't none of your friend's business right now. But I was that person, and I was very closed off. If I had an issue with something or with a person, I wouldn't really go to them about it. It would I would let things fester. Really was my issue. I wouldn't talk about stuff. I let it fester. And that was very damaging because for me personally, I was doing, it doesn't seem like the most now that years later, I graduated from school like 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I've seen way more people, like, I'm exposed to people who have way bigger, like, issues and different ways that they deal with that stuff. But for me, I was doing self-harm. I used to drink, well, this is regular for college probably, but I had one little period where my friend was like, are you okay? Because I was drinking that much. And I remember even like, God, this is like disgusting to me now even thinking about it. But I remember even at one point, like, I would take my college roommates like cigarettes. Like, I would just go and like smoke a cigarette for no reason, which is weird because I think cigarettes are disgusting. But I also maybe I don't really have an addictive personality because that's not something that lasted really long or anything. I never bought cigarettes in my life. Good God. Yeah, that's so disgusting. I didn't like do any other smoking or anything. I didn't even try that till like after college. And what else? And I was not sexually active till I was like 23 or 24 or something like that. So those weren't issues. but I was harming myself. Oh, and I used to randomly, this is how I knew I had a problem too, and I'm like laughing, it's not funny, I'm sorry, but I was a junior in college. I would just, and I can't even explain why, but I would just take pills. Like if I had, and Carly's looking at me like, ooh, this is the first time I'm hearing this. But I would just take pills. Like I'd have like Tylenol or not anything like real extra because I didn't have prescriptions. But I don't know why. I would just like take a few and go to sleep. And it's like I knew nothing would happen to me. I never did enough to really anything happen. But I just wanted to like numb out or something. And there was even a one time in college that, oh, you know what? I didn't study for some test or something. So I took a bunch of pills just to go to the doctor's office to get a note. That was like my plan, which was terrible. And I knew what I took, but I had to act like I didn't really know. And I did have some cramps there too. So I had taken them for a reason because the day before, I think my mom was in town. We had some kind of awards thing at my college, and she came, and like my stomach was like really bothering me. And so I kind of developed that plan and put it all together. And I took like a handful of pills, and I knew I would be fine. But I did wake up and was kind of sick and like threw up. And so I went to the health center, and I told the doctor, I was like, oh yeah, I took, I was having some cramps. I took like 10 of these things. And he was like, why'd you take that many? I was like, yeah, it was just hurting bad. And he like called me out and was like, yeah, I'm gonna send you to the ER. And really like send me because he wanted me to like get help or whatever. Right. And I was like, no, I wasn't trying to kill myself. And I wasn't. I never was trying to kill myself. Although actually I do have another story about that, but I'm not gonna get into that today. But I was like, no, I'm good. Like now I'm trying to like backtrack. Like, oh, I know how many I took. Like it wasn't that serious. He's like, no, you gotta go to the ER. So they sent me to the hospital, and my parents had to come up to the hospital. And it was weird because I was very good at faking it, if that makes sense. And I think that's one thing where we always say, oh, check on your strong friends. But nobody would have known that I was doing any of those things. Nobody would have known that I was like cutting myself, taking pills, all this random stuff, because I wasn't doing it for people to see. Like I wasn't doing it for attention. That was just my own coping mechanisms. And so my parents were so confused. And even right now, they don't know about this because I knew it would hurt them to feel like I couldn't talk to them or that I didn't talk to them. Yeah. I don't think my friends know about this at all, but they were at the hospital and the doctor was asking me questions like, well, why did you do that? Or what's your reasoning? And I just told her I just had cramps. Like that's it. And I could stick to my story so well. They made a psychologist come talk to me to assess, my mental state. I knew exactly the things I needed to say to her for her to be like, oh yeah, I guess she's fine. It was just weird. My parents were kind of iffy, like, what's really going on? But at the end of the day, I think everybody bought it. And I think it was easy for me to slide through living that kind of life. And I know exactly how to make it look like I'm fine. But I wasn't. And for me, I remember thinking like, I do not ever want to put my parents in a situation like that again. Mm-hmm. And B, it's just like, Lex, like, why are you doing the most? Like, because you don't want to die or anything. You're just doing the most. So something is wrong and something needs to change. And I honestly am not sure what it was. And I don't even know what original question you asked me for me to get this extra with my answer. But, what does my journey look like? I think that was after that time. And that was, like I said, I was a junior, maybe like senior year of college. And those couple years right after school was a time where it was like, yeah, something needs to be different because obviously this is a problem. And I think I just started to read more, listen to more things. And honestly, though, I think it's not until so I was like, probably 21, 22, graduating from school. I think it wasn't probably, honestly, to my 30s that I really would say a decision was made about really being more self-aware and really learning the journey. Or like really making efforts into thinking about, okay, who am I? Why am I doing things that I do? And what needs to be different? Because there's a long time of cruising, especially through relationships. I think relationships is a big thing that made me realize, like, why am I making certain decisions? Or why am I placing, myself into validation of others or this or that, whatever it is. So I think a lot of it was with a relationship that made me continue to grow and grow and grow even faster. And like, it seems like the growth is exponential to me because those college things I just talked about, okay, cool. I grew from that a little, but then as more things happen, I like went more into, I got really deep into like really understanding like what do I need to do, what needs to be different, and really wanting to change. And I guess you have to want that to really do it, you know? And then once you do it and you really start to feel better, and it's like, man, like I just feel more clear or more, you know, understanding of why I'm in this space that I'm in, or why I'm doing what I'm doing, all of those things. And so I think it's just a lot of life experiences that one day you're just like, man, I don't like this. And, you know, you have to make a decision to do something about it, or to at least admit that to yourself, I think is important as well. Is your story that interesting about your journey? I think I left a lot of things out too, by the way. Y'all can DM me if you have. No, actually, you know what? That's one thing I do want to say, because I have somebody who's been on my timeline who talks about certain things, and you know, you don't want everybody all in your business about stuff. So I'm not always gonna at them and be like, girl, I did that too, or you know, like I woke up in the hospital with it because I did blah blah blah, whatever. But if there is ever anybody who's dealing with like self-harm or certain things that I talked about, like feel free to hit me up, because I definitely like went through that for a while.
Yeah, and that's real.
And then one day it just totally disgusted me. It's weird. So I don't know. I can understand it, I guess, and I can listen to it without being judgy about it, I guess.
And I think that's important. Like, you hit on a lot of very important things, and thank you for sharing, because yeah, I didn't know.
I'm sitting here like, ooh, Carly's looking at me like, damn, girl.
Yeah, and see, I would never.
You doing the most.
But that's like you, like even judging yourself, talking about I'm being so extra. But that's your journey. Ain't nothing extra about your journey to get to where you are.
And it's interesting how many people probably really are like, they have similar things.
Girl,
and so we try to hide ourselves when.
For what? Because, you know, it's not those things we should. So thank you for sharing. Like, that's so real. But I really love that you said it's a decision. Like, it is a daily choice to choose to do what's best for yourself and to love yourself, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. It's so much easier, I think, to go through life unaware and not working on yourself and saying, this is just the way that I am.
Yeah, because you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, and you're comfortable, so.
And like the hurt people, you said, sometimes that's just yourself. Sometimes you're hurt and you just hurt yourself, and you continue to, and everybody around you, and it just, you don't want to feel like a ball of destruction. I remember having friends in college who'd be like, you're always so negative, like you're negative. And I started hearing it and being like, oh my gosh. You know, and even now, like I'm conscious to think about how I say stuff or what I'm saying. And again, I'm totally, it's interesting almost how totally different I feel of a person I am now. And even that I work in communications when I hated talking to people and hated everything about communication. So it's interesting how things change, but I just started hearing things and started paying attention more to hearing the same things over and over and being like, all right, I don't want people to think of me in that way.
Yeah. I mean, but also just getting down to the root of why that was a thing and like working through it. And I think another interesting part, well, I'll just jump into like a little bit of my story.
Because why I'm that way is a whole different story, because it's years later that you think about like, oh, this is why I ended up going that path.
Exactly. And it's not until years later after you've been doing the work. So I graduated and moved. I was living in Dallas and it was good. And my mentor, like who I didn't know was going to be my mentor at the time, me and her had been
same one you have now?
Yeah. Had been going to Zumba classes together. And one day after Zumba, I was like talking about my mom, and me and her started talking about self-love because we had gotten to a place where I could be open. And me and my mom's relationship, we've had some issues. And we, you know, we're in a huge space of growth. It's probably the best it's ever been, but it's been hard, like actually owning up to and working through some of that. But I was talking to her about it, and she was like, me and her started talking about self-love, and I was just like, I love myself. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean I love myself? And then so she recommended for me to read this book called Codependent No More. And codependency is whenever you're, in a sense, an enabler, and you take over people's problems and you insert yourself in there and try to fix them for them and on a level to where it starts to harm you, right? And that's like not textbook dictionary definition of it, but that's like my interpretation of it. But Codependent No More by Melody Beatty, really good book if you think that you have relationships where you might be doing that, to a place where it harms yourself, where you don't have boundaries.
A lot of us do.
Oh my God. And so I started reading that book, and I was like, man, I'm super codependent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, what else am I doing in my
You're
life?
not even aware until you see stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then I went through a breakup.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about relationships. I think relationships are meant to show us where we can grow, because that's when you grow the most, is when you're in a relationship. So I was going through a really hard breakup.
So you didn't even really know yourself yet, but you're in a relationship.
Yeah,
it's
right.
weird.
And so you think you know yourself, and you think you're good, and that you love yourself, and that you're confident and all this, and then something happens that shakes that.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, everything kind of started crumbling away. Like, I was like so sad and so hard on myself and so down, and I was like one of my neos lived with me in Dallas for a little while, and I used to cry in the shower and be wondering, like, because I had a 1 bedroom, it was just me, but she was staying with me, and I was like, I wonder if she can hear me, and I was like real embarrassed. And it was, and now even like, it's so funny, we talked about it recently, but before that we had never talked about it because I was so embarrassed that anything could shake me. You know, Carly, who is the strong person, who's there for everybody, who was able to do all these things, it shook me down to the core. But what I realized in hindsight, it wasn't even the breakup, it was just the crumbling of the facade that I had for myself.
Yeah, that's what it tends to be, that you placed who you are into the wrong things. And now those things are gone.
Who am I?
What
am I? And so I started on this journey. I remember reading was it Ebony or Essence? I think it might have been Essence, with Jada and Will. Love Jada and Will. But Jada, they asked her, you know, how do you and Will make it work? How do you make it work in Hollywood? So many people can't. And she said, well, I put myself first. She was like, and then me and Will's relationships, and then the kids. And then everybody was like, you put yourself before your kids? You selfish.
Answers that are real, but they don't sound like they go along with all the R&B songs and the movies and things like that.
But what she said was that if I don't take care of myself, how can I bring my best self to a relationship? If we don't take care of our relationship, how can we put our best selves in front of our kids? And so I love like their whole story where Will talks about he retired on trying to make Jada happy, and that he challenged her to go be happy for herself and to come back to him full. And they both challenged each other, like, to go find happiness outside of each other and to find your identity. And so that breakup was like a blessing in the sense that it enabled me to find myself. Like, I started doing yoga because I needed to move in my body in a way that best served me and to pour into myself. I started working out more. I started reading more books, spending more time with people who cared about me and who, you know, helped me find out who I really am. That's the catapult for my self-love journey. I do have all the deep, dark, crazy stuff that happened too, which we can get into later, but that's really what sparked it. It was a breakup.
This is sounding like our moving on episode, because it's kind of like, man, when you get off center, you have to come back to really, like, but how do you keep that? Because, I mean, things happen. I mean, obviously, we've had breakups, and then you go through this, and then I've had other relationships that maybe were better, but they're still not right, and you go through it again, and you keep going through it again. And this self-love thing, I feel like, I want to say it should be an unshakable thing, but I don't know how you get to that, or should it be?
I don't know if it's unshakable, and I for damn sure it's not for me. It is a constant growth. It's a constant evolution, I think is a better word, in the sense that I just learn more and more. But what I'll say, like, getting further along the journey, the things that used to would have shaken me, like, to my core, now will kind of like knock me off balance a little bit, and then I'm back. So I think it's the bounce back period, right? And I think ways to stay centered are making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And in order to be able to do that, you have to know what you need. Like, you have to know, like,
what
who you are.
From what?
From yourself. And what I mean by that is, like, I know that I love to create. And so if there's a time in my life where I'm not cooking, I'm not painting, I'm not doing creative projects, I'm not drawing, I'm not doing all of the things, dancing, creating with my body, like, that's why I love yoga and dancing and movement, because you create with your body. If I'm not doing those things, then I know that there's a part of me that's, like, struggling.
But what about, so for me, I would say I like to create, and, you know, obviously you're having more fun with your life when you're doing things that you enjoy. Not that I don't enjoy work, but work is work. And so a lot of times it's like I have to focus on work, focus on client stuff, and then I don't get to my stuff, or I don't get to the fun stuff all the time. and maybe that's another episode on balance, but
yeah, it's a
look, Carla, like, girl, get some help with this.
What I'll say though, what I'll challenge you is similar to the Will and Jada thing. If you're not taking care, and not saying you're not taking care of yourself, but if you're not being your best self, how can you bring your best self to your clients?
Girl, you don't. Or you bring everything you have to that, and then it's like nothing really left.
Exactly, but you gotta pay yourself first. My granddaddy always taught us to pay yourself first.
Key. That's super key. I love pay yourself first, but when we talk about money, we're gonna really talk about that.
We are, but even in life, like with your time,
because it's your life.
It's your life, and my mentor. I feel like, man, I promise she's not paying me, y'all. But you got to be the CEO of your own life. And when I say that, if you were to meet with the CEO of your dream company, whatever that is, if you're in developing sports equipment, Nike, right? If you were going to meet with the CEO of Nike, let's just say that was your dream, and he/she, because I'm not sure who the president is, scheduled a lunch meeting with you, are you going to skirt off on the lunch meeting and not go? No. So why do we do that to ourselves? You thought, depending on what I'm doing. But why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we put ourselves last? When I say, hey, I'm going to work out at this time,
absolutely right.
All of a sudden I'm like, no, somebody else needs something, or I'm going to do this. But we're the most important person in our life. And I know people are probably like, no, well, I have kids and they're the most important. But I bring that back to the Will and Jada thing. If you're not your best self, what version of you is your spouse, friends, parents, sister, brother, relationship, kids getting?
I mean, that's why they say in the airplane, you have to put your mask off first before you help the people around you.
Preach.
Because if you pass it out, helping somebody else, then everybody loses. So I think it is important. That's why this self-love journey is important. And it's a personal thing, because you need to feel whole, be complete, or at least, like you're saying, understand, what does that mean? What does that look like? What do I need, so that you can arrange your life in a way? And I think you can arrange your life. That's something where people, again, everybody has their struggles, and people will be quick to say, well, I have to do this and I have to do that, and my kids and my job, and I get that too. But you can arrange your life, and I think that we don't give ourselves as much credit, as much power as we really do have. And again, that's not us saying this as if we're perfect, because obviously I'm struggling with the same thing.
I'm struggling.
Look, I rolled over crazy this morning, but it is what it is. But still understanding that, and I think that's where things start to change. Where yes, you're still going through this stuff, and you're still learning as you go, and still dealing with it, getting better. But recognizing it and then applying that, I think, makes a big difference.
And so, I think self-love is a lifelong journey, and it changes as you grow, as different parts of yourself develop, as different stages in your life happen. So it changes often.
I think there's a couple areas where, I don't want to say I'm fully, but a couple areas where I really I got it, and I got real better. And then now there's like a couple other areas, or maybe as I continue to grow, I'm noticing new things and seeing different things. But one thing, Carly, too, about this journey, we did mention not being hard on yourself, but how do you make sure that being self-aware is hard sometimes? Or because now I feel like I don't want to feel like I'm constantly judging or constantly having to think about everything I'm doing. And yes, stuff is off sometimes, and sometimes stuff is good. But how do you keep from making this journey, because it is a journey, and because you're working on things, and because you're self-aware, you're not in a constant state of, I'm not there yet, I'm not good enough. And that's kind of where I start to get, the more self-aware I am. Now it's more, you can become miserable if you're not careful about, I always have something to improve, which we all do.
Yeah, I think that's like the whole complacency versus contentment thing. It's like, how can I be satisfied with where I am, but also still, dreaming bigger and looking more towards the future. And it's blooming where you're planted. Like, you literally can't change. Like, I will never be the fully evolved version of myself. I always want to get better in every area. But then I look back a year, 5 years, 10 years, and I'm like, damn, girl, you did that. You did that. And knowing that I love myself enough to take the steps that I need and invest in myself in such a way so that I can continue growing. And knowing that I'm enough right now exactly as I am. Like, it's a constant reminder.
But on a day-to-day where, let's say, I'm working on listening more, or not interrupting people all the time, or, like we said in another episode, giving unsolicited advice, whatever it is, right, that I'm aware of, that I'm working on different things. when it happens, or if I'm in a circumstance, to be like, girl, you messed up, but okay. Like you have to be able to let it go.
Let it roll off your back like that.
Because there's so much stuff that we all need to constantly be improving, or that we can improve. But again, even looking back, like you said, I think we should only be comparing ourselves to ourselves, which is easy to say. Everything's easy to say. So that's actually something I hate, when people are like, easier said than done. Anytime I say something to them, I'm like, what's not? But
the truth,
right? But comparing yourself to like who you were, sometimes it's who you were a couple weeks ago. Sometimes I can have a day where I'm like the person I was maybe 5 years ago, but then it was just a day. So not being too hard on yourself, and just continuing to move forward, but also loving and still appreciating, understanding where you are. I guess that's part of the self-love. Is even in your flaws, be like, okay, that's me. That's something I'm working on. I get it. Moving on.
But not owning those failures or those bad days, not owning that, and knowing that that's not who you are. Although you have those, that does not define you. And you're not defined by those things. I love it in yoga because some days I can do dope poses and my balance is on point and my core is popping. Even in workouts, sometimes I'm on. And then the next day, I'm like, whose body is this? Like, what's going on? Like, I just want to lay in Shavasana or a child's pose and not move. But that's okay. And knowing that whatever it is, that's okay.
And that's the beauty of life, too, that every day is different. And
every day.
Yeah, and that there's the ups and downs, and you gotta be okay with it. Maybe that's how you know you're in a good space, when you're okay with the good and the bad. Not meaning you're okay with letting it happen and you're content, but you're okay with everything as it happens.
And so, I guess let's summarize. So, what are some ways you've seen growth in this area, or some things that you do to help you kind of love on yourself?
For me, the self-awareness, listening to other people more. So, and not that people come straight out to you and be complaining like, oh girl, you smell bad, you look bad, or you are negative. Not necessarily that, but paying attention to my relationships, my closest relationships, and how they make me feel, or how I feel like they're reacting to me, so I can understand what am I giving off, what vibes am I giving off, energy, and being aware of myself. So when I know there's things that I'm working on, staying self-aware and knowing myself, and that I'm constantly aware of what's going on. For me, that's always the first thing. But then I also like to, I still don't really like to super talk. Like, I don't want to call people every time I'm thinking about something, going on. But I like to do a lot of writing, or I would do a lot of writing, and just jotting my thoughts down. And sometimes, a lot of times my tweets look like I'm so like fake, like semi sad philosophy, all of that. But it's weird but I'll be mad happy. It's just that I'll get these thoughts where I'm like, oh, or an epiphany, or think about something. But yeah, like maybe you have to look at my IG stories also, because then I'll be laughing and joking. But I just tend to put those types of things on Twitter. But those things, sometimes I get like ideas, or something connects, and I just want to write it down. Or I can look at the old things I've written and how they connect with where I am now as well, and I can see differences, I can see growth, and it helps me to keep things into perspective.
Yeah, I love those. Journaling, writing is one of my favorite, because I feel there's a free-flowing writing that sometimes you don't get in talking. And that's important. You start writing and you're like, okay, journaling is stupid, I hate this. And then on the 10th page, you're like, oh, that's why I feel this way about this, and react.
And sometimes I answer my own questions, or I'm talking to myself. It's not a place where, when you're with your, like, sometimes you say, okay, you need another person to balance out, like, what you're thinking, or because you're not seeing the full picture. But when I'm writing, and even when I'm, like, talking to myself or writing to myself, it's kind of easy for me to place myself outside and as another person to myself, like, girl, like, you need to get your stuff together, or whatever it is. Like, I'm not justifying my own issues, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, that's real. And I think there's a balance also of talking to other people, like your friends, about things, and then also working through some things in yourself. And so what I try to do in learning how to trust myself and be confident in what I'm thinking is I try to work through things, and then I'll talk to somebody. Once I feel like I've kind of processed the situation, then I talk to someone outside who can give like an unbiased, like, well, yeah, like I see the growth in that, but have you thought about this? And I'm like, oh, that's a great point. I think that an assessment of like your life, like who are you spending time with? What are you watching, reading, listening to? Where are you spending your time? How are you spending your time? Is a big one for me, because then I can reassess, because time is the most valuable thing that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, and then moving, like having some type of routine. And I don't mean like at 6:05 in the morning wake up and at 6:10 do this. No, because I refuse. I can't live my life like that. But what I do mean is, okay, I'm going to work out 6 times this week, or I'm going to do this, or make sure I journal or meditate every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like?
It's helpful for me having a morning routine, which it does change from time to time, because if I feel like I'm stagnant in something, I need a little refresh or do something different. But I'm also not hard on myself if I miss it, but I try to, get up. I do my meditation. I use Calm app. I know you like Headspace. We beef about that. And
Headspace on
whatever. And I like to be able to read a little bit. If I write my goals down or do any jotting down ideas, do that before I get to work while I'm like drinking my coffee. But again, there's some days where I wake up later, or I have to wake up right into a meeting or something, and I'm mad because I'm like, man, I knew I should have got up earlier so I could, get my day started the way I want to. And sometimes I don't, and then I have to make sure I can't be down on myself, because if I get down on myself, now the rest of the day like tumbles into that kind of
Another thing I think is avoiding social media or your phone maybe in the first like 5 to 10 minutes of the day, maybe an hour if you really about that life.
That's hard.
But not getting on, because the things you see and read really do affect your energy.
Oh, it blows me. And I still do it. Well, I don't know. Well, I do know why I still do it, because I actually understand habit forming and how they create a lot of stuff. But the first thing, if I wake up in the morning, pick my phone up, and I start scrolling, I could be laying in bed for another 20, 30 minutes just scrolling. And even if I'm scrolling, being like, oh, this is stupid, girl, shut up, scrolling this.
You just scrolling.
Yeah.
Because it's a habit, it's an addiction.
Yeah.
But if you change
Try putting your phone across the room.
Yeah.
I've done that before. And it's good because A, I have to get up to, if I have an alarm, turn it off. Or B, once I get up, you're at least out of bed.
Yeah, I put that on my airplane mode, or I'll like turn off my data and my Wi-Fi. Because I read something, I don't know if it's true or not, but I read something about how those frequencies affect your sleep. And so I turn that stuff off, and so it's really nice sometimes to wake up and not look at my phone the first thing. I wake up, I breathe, I stretch, I do whatever, and then I go to my phone. So you're choosing how you want to feel for the day, as opposed to it being dictated towards you.
That's good. And not even checking your emails, things like that, first thing in the morning.
Emails don't see the first hour of my life.
Yeah, that's good. So for me, again, having a good morning routine, and even sometimes a little bit at night where I want to read and do certain things, are good for me as well.
We would love to hear anything about your self-love journey, anything about your routines or how you love on you. Please feel free to screenshot, share with us. Drop us a line on the website, carliescouch.com, CARLIES, couch.com, or hit us up on Instagram, CCFierce, Lex_Topia. And then, do you have a shout out for us today?
No, I never have a shout out.
Well, I have another one. I like to celebrate dope people doing dope things.
I'll just be like, all my friends doing regular dope stuff. Not regular, but
it's not regular.
All right.
You want to shout out a friend since I feel like, okay.
I can't think of anything specific besides be like,
I got so excited.
She about to tear the mics up.
So my homeboy Nick, he is in film school at USC. Super dope. We went to undergrad at the University of Oklahoma together. Boomer Sooner. So we share an undergrad alma mater and a graduate school alma mater. So Boomer Sooner, then fight on. But he wrote these culturally relevant children's books that teach social and emotional learning. Yes, with a young black girl as the character. Her name is Yanni. The series is called The Adventures of Yanni. And like I said, it teaches social and emotional learning to kids. She's basically like the Black Dora. It's really dope.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah, he put his heart into it. Nick also does a lot of dope things. Rapper, producer, directs movies, like writes scripts. Like he does a lot of really cool stuff, but I really see his heart in The Adventures of Yanni. So definitely if you have kids, check them out if you want to.
It's something you can buy now, or he's working?
Yeah, no. There's a whole series. It's online, theadventuresofyanni.com.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How do you spell Yanni?
Yeah, Yanni is Yani. Yanni.
Oh, that's cool. Like Carly just said, feel free to have convo with us online about these topics. There's so much more that we could even say about you know, what that journey can look like, what it does look like. And it's not going to be the same for everybody. Obviously, it's different for both of us, but I'm sure it's different for all of you. And what helps you, what makes you feel good is different for everybody. Just, we know that drugs, alcohol, sex, all those things are probably, they feel good, but they're not long-term good things to do. So just being cognizant of, I like that word.
Me too. As soon as I was thinking it, and then you said it.
Being cognizant of how you're dealing with things and what you may be, if you are trying to escape from something.
Yeah, or avoiding.
That's just the first steps in understanding where you are, and then just looking for the right resources and people in your life to kind of help guide you along.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll continue this conversation. This is definitely more than one episode, but thank you for listening, hanging out with us. Let's hit them with the question.
Question of the week is, how can I better keep myself in the present moment? Hashtag Carly's Couch.
Hashtag Carly's Couch.
You can hashtag it, write it down for yourself. For me, how I keep myself in the present moment, I'm in my head a lot. That's one of my biggest things that I deal with is, and I didn't even know what that meant. Again, like how you said earlier, until really it was my therapist, and that's a huge part of this episode that we could have talked about, and we should just have a whole therapy episode.
We will.
But she was like, sounds like you're in your head a lot. And to me, I'm like, what does that even mean? You know, like, but I get it. It's like all these things go on, thinking, and I'm not really being aware of what's really just right in front of me or what's going on around me. And for me, just being aware of that, first of all, helps. But how I stay in the present moment is I just catch myself when I'm doing something and all of a sudden I'm thinking about a million other things, or I'm jotting down like some other stuff I need to do as well. And I say, Lex, I say this to myself, I'm like, Lex, slow down. And then I say, Lex, get back to what you're focused on. Like I have to breathe. You would be proud of that. You breathe. And I have to tell myself, slow down. And I tell myself, what was I doing first? And I will get off into doing a million things all the time. I do it all the time. But just to stay in the present moment. And also another thing I would say is sometimes opportunities like standing in line somewhere, waiting for your Uber, stuff like that, are opportunities where I pick up my phone and be in my phone. And I've started to try to be aware and like use that waiting time as time to really look around and what's happening around me, and you know, maybe think or breathe in instead of just always grabbing my phone, or you know, not really paying attention to what's right around me.
It stole everything that I was going to say.
That's what you get for telling me the answer.
Yeah, I know, I should have first. Next time. I was going to say put your phone down. Not even in just the waiting moments, but when you're spending time with friends, or when you're at an event, or when you're with like a significant other, like put it down sometimes and just, and just enjoy the present moment. And when you're like at work, and if you feel like your head is in the deadlines for next week and the stuff you didn't get finished before this, do a big clearing breath like we did at the beginning of the episode. Inhale through your nose and then exhale all of the breath out of your body.
It helps recenter you.
It does, and just take a moment to notice how you feel. So that brings you physically back into your body. And I know that sounds weird and really frou-frou, but there is so much scientific evidence behind it, which we'll share with you guys. But just to bring yourself back in, just to notice how you feel. And then moving a little bit, maybe stretch your neck, stretch your shoulders. We'll get into some stretches later too. But how can you better keep yourself in the present moment this week? Holla at us and let us know.
All right. Thanks for joining us on this episode. And thanks for being a part of our journey of self-love as well as yours. So everybody have a good week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.